You live in an age where truth is punished, not with whips, not with chains, but with silence, with shame, with exile. Today, asking the wrong question brands you as dangerous, not because the question is violent, but because it is alive. And in a world that worships obedience, life itself becomes a threat. Look around. You scroll through endless headlines, each one shouting, none of them listening. You're told what to think, how to feel, what to fear. And if you dare to ask why, the system doesn't answer. It attacks. They call it misinformation. They call it dangerous speech. But what they really mean is this: you are not allowed to think for yourself. This is the silent crime of our time. Not theft, not violence, but questioning. And it is punished more severely than anything else. You have felt it. That moment in a classroom when you raised your hand, only to be mocked for overthinking. That conversation at work when you challenged the official story and felt the room grow cold. That post online when you dared to speak the truth and watched the mob descend. You were not punished for lying. You were punished for thinking. This is not new. Every tyrant in history knew the same law: silence the questions, and the people will obey. Socrates was executed, not for crime, but for corrupting the youth with questions. Galileo was imprisoned, not for violence, but for asking if the earth truly stood still. Nietzsche was ridiculed, not because he was wrong, but because he made men uncomfortable with the truth. Do you see the pattern? The questioner has always been the criminal, and society has always played the executioner. But here is the darker truth. Today, the punishment is no longer public execution. It is something more subtle, more effective. It is ridicule, censorship, social death. They don't burn you at the stake. They burn your reputation, your voice, your dignity, until you willingly kneel, mute and obedient. This is the age of stupidity, an age where thinking is branded arrogance, where silence is praised as virtue, where stupidity is rewarded as loyalty. And here's the most painful part. You've already complied. How many times have you swallowed your questions? How many times have you bitten your tongue just to stay safe? How many times have you watched the lie pass and told yourself it wasn't your fight? You did not resist, you obeyed. And with each silence, the system grew stronger. But if you are here, watching this, it means a spark has survived. A part of you still refuses to die. A part of you that knows to question is not a crime. It is the last act of freedom, the last weapon of the individual. In this video, I will show you why questioning has been turned into a crime, and why only those who dare to think will escape the collapse of this age. By the end, you will not see questioning as weakness. You will see it for what it truly is: rebellion, and you will choose silence or sovereignty. They don't tell you outright that thinking is forbidden. No law is written on paper that says, stop asking questions. But you feel it. You felt it your entire life. From the moment you stepped into a classroom, you were taught the rules. Don't challenge the teacher. Don't ask why the answer must be memorized instead of understood. Don't disturb the order. Every school, every institution, every office is built on this invisible command: obey. Don't question. And when you did question, you remember what happened. They didn't debate you. They didn't reward your curiosity. They laughed. They labeled you difficult, arrogant, troublemaker. Do you see the trick? They never said your thought was wrong. They said you were wrong for having it. That is how society kills the questioner, not with arguments, but with shame. History proves this law has always existed. Socrates was sentenced to death, not because he attacked the city, but because he asked questions that pierced its lies. Galileo was locked away, not because he held a weapon, but because he dared to ask if the earth truly stood at the center of the universe. The men who asked why were always painted as criminals, and today the execution is quieter. You will not be poisoned, you will not be imprisoned, you will simply be erased. One wrong question online, and your voice disappears. One wrong question at work, and your career collapses. One wrong question in society, and you are branded forever as toxic, dangerous, unstable. Psychologists call it conformity. Machiavelli called it obedience through fear. Nietzsche called it herd morality. But you already know what it feels like. It feels like standing in a crowd where everyone nods, and you are the only one shaking your head. It feels like the burning in your chest when you want to speak, but swallow your words instead. It feels like betrayal, not of the system, but of yourself. Because every time you silence yourself, every time you bury your question, you commit the crime they want you to commit. You kill your own mind. And here is the cruelest twist. Society does not just punish questioning, it rewards stupidity. The obedient fool is praised as a team player. The silent servant is called professional. The loud parrot who repeats the narrative is promoted, celebrated, applauded, while the thinker, the man who dares to ask, is isolated, branded, silenced. This is how the system trains you. Mock the questioner, reward the follower, and slowly the crowd learns the lesson. It is safer to be stupid than to be free. But you are not safe. You are restless. You know the lie, and it haunts you. You've felt the sting of being mocked, labeled, excluded, and you carry the wound of silence. This section of your life, this crime of thinking, is the proof that the system is working exactly as designed. And if you continue to obey, if you continue to silence yourself, you will become exactly what they want, another faceless servant in the age of stupidity. But if you refuse, if you endure the ridicule, the exile, the punishment, then you step onto the path that only the rarest souls have walked, the path of the dangerous, the path of the thinker. You are living in an age of noise, an age where truth drowns, not in silence, but in a flood of distraction, where the loudest voice is mistaken for the wisest, where stupidity is not just tolerated, it is crowned, celebrated, rewarded. This is the age of stupidity. Look around. The man who dances on your screen for 10 seconds is called an influencer. The one who memorizes headlines and spits them out like a parrot is called informed. The one who asks nothing, risks nothing, questions nothing, is promoted as a good citizen. And the one who dares to question, he is mocked, he is canceled, he is erased. Nietzsche warned of this. He called it herd morality, a system where the many, the weak, the fearful, cling together in stupidity, while the thinker is branded as dangerous. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, writing during the rise of Nazism, went further. Stupidity is a more dangerous enemy of the good than malice. Because stupidity can be manipulated, stupidity obeys without resistance, stupidity destroys with a smile. Do you see it now? The real danger is not the villain. The real danger is the obedient fool who follows the villain without thought. And in this age, the world is filled with them. You see it in your feed. Millions reposting the same words they didn't write. Millions chanting the same slogans they don't understand. Millions cheering the same idols who would never recognize their faces. This is the new church. The altar is the screen. The prayers are hashtags. The worship is stupidity. And here is the sickest part. The system rewards it. The man who makes you laugh for 10 seconds gains millions. The woman who parrots the safe opinion gains applause. The mindless entertainer is raised to the level of philosopher, prophet, saint. But the thinker, the one who pierces through the noise with a question that hurts, he is punished, he is ridiculed, he is silenced. Society no longer just ignores wisdom, it crucifies it, because wisdom threatens the machine. And what about you? How many hours have you wasted scrolling through noise, mistaking it for knowledge? How many times have you nodded along with stupidity? Just because it was popular? Just because it was safe? How many times have you betrayed yourself, choosing silence instead of truth, applause instead of thought? That is how the age of stupidity wins, not by force, but by seduction. It lures you with comfort, with entertainment, with distraction, until you no longer want to think, until questioning feels exhausting, until silence feels easy. But if you are watching this, it means you are different. It means you are not content to drown in stupidity. It means you still feel the hunger for truth, even when the crowd spits on it. And this difference is everything, because in an age where stupidity is power, even a single act of thought is rebellion. Even a single question is war. Even the refusal to kneel makes you untouchable. The age of stupidity has already consumed millions, but it will not consume you unless you allow it. Unless you choose to obey, unless you silence yourself, bury yourself, numb yourself into the crowd. So choose. Be the servant of stupidity, or the rebel who still dares to think. Silence is not neutral. Silence is manufactured. It is engineered into you, drilled into you, forced into you, until you mistake it for your own choice. From the first day you walked into school, you entered the factory. Sit down, face forward, memorize, repeat. Raise your hand too often, and you're a disruption. Ask the wrong question and you're wasting time. The student who obeys is rewarded with grades. The one who resists is punished with shame. This is where the machinery begins. And it doesn't stop at school. Step into the workplace and the machine takes another form. The obedient worker is praised for professionalism. The silent employee is called a team player. But the one who questions, the one who challenges the process, the policy, the illusion, is quietly removed. Not by argument, not by truth, but by exile. Careers collapse not because of failure, but because of thought. The media plays its part. It does not tell you to shut up. It drowns you in noise. It floods you with stories, scandals, distractions, until your real questions vanish beneath trivia. And when you finally do raise your voice, the headlines crush you with labels: extremist, conspiracy theorist, dangerous. The machine never argues. It categorizes. It stigmatizes. It silences. Politics completes the circle. Every leader speaks of freedom, yet writes laws of control. Every government praises truth, yet funds propaganda. Every regime, democratic or dictatorial, shares one secret law: do not question the system itself. Mock the clown. Criticize the surface, but never touch the root. The dissenter who dares to ask why is treated as a threat. In dictatorships, they are imprisoned. In democracies, they are censored, shadow banned, erased. Different methods, same machinery, same result. Do you understand what this means? Your silence is not natural. It has been designed, engineered, imposed. Every time you held your tongue in school, every time you stayed quiet at work, every time you scrolled past a lie because it was too dangerous to comment. It wasn't your choice. It was their training. They taught you that silence is safety, that silence is wisdom, that silence is virtue. But the truth is this: silence is obedience, and obedience is death. History shows us this pattern again and again. The Soviet citizen who dared to question the party vanished overnight. The German who raised doubts in 1939 was silenced by his own neighbors. The whistleblower today, in any nation, is branded not as a hero, but as a traitor. This is not random. It is the machinery of silence, a system perfected over centuries, a system that knows one law: a questioning man is dangerous, a silent man is useful. And here is where you stand now. You believe your silence is survival, but what if it is not survival? What if it is surrender? What if every time you stay silent, you feed the machine that enslaves you? Because silence does not protect you. It condemns you. It makes you invisible, replaceable, forgettable, and worse, it makes you complicit. So ask yourself, whose voice are you really protecting when you stay silent? Your own or theirs? And what would happen if you stopped? What would happen if you broke the machine? If you dared to speak, to question, to stand? That is what the system fears most, not your silence, your voice. Obedience does not happen by accident. It is trained into you, drilled into your mind until you mistake it for your own will. The first weapon is ridicule. Ask a dangerous question, and they don't argue with you. They laugh. They roll their eyes. They make you feel small, because nothing kills truth faster than humiliation. You don't silence yourself because you were wrong. You silence yourself because you don't want to be laughed at again. The second weapon is isolation. Step outside the herd and you feel it instantly. the stares, the whispers, the distance. People don't need to ban you outright. They simply cut you off until the pain of loneliness forces you to crawl back into the group. The third weapon is labels. They don't need to prove you wrong. They only need to brand you. Conspiracy theorist, extremist, dangerous. The label sticks deeper than the truth. Once it's burned into your identity, nothing you say will be heard again. And the final weapon is propaganda, the endless repetition of the safe narrative. Jung warned that what we refuse to question becomes the shadow of society, a hidden monster that grows stronger the longer it remains unchallenged. Machiavelli knew this too. The appearance of order is more powerful than truth itself. So long as the illusion looks stable, the crowd obeys. Do you see the pattern? Obedience is rewarded. Resistance is punished. The fool who nods along gets applause. The servant who repeats the lie gets promoted. But the man who questions, he pays, every time. And here is the bitter truth. This isn't random cruelty. This is training. Every ridicule, every label, every silence has been a lesson. And the lesson is simple. Think and you will suffer. Obey and you will survive. But survival is not freedom. And you were not born to survive as a shadow in the age of stupidity. You were born to resist it. You were born to question, even when it costs you. Because the one who obeys becomes nothing. And the one who questions becomes untouchable. Every age has its rebels, not the loud ones who shout for attention, not the mobs who riot in ignorance, but the rare, dangerous few who dared to question when silence was the law. Socrates stood in the streets of Athens and asked questions so sharp they cut through the illusions of power. For that crime, he was sentenced to death, not because he lied, but because he refused to stop asking. Galileo pointed his telescope at the heavens and whispered the unthinkable. The earth is not the center of the universe. For that crime, he was imprisoned, not because he lacked evidence, but because he refused to kneel before stupidity. Nietzsche wrote against the herd, against the comfort of conformity, against the shallow morality of the crowd. He was mocked, exiled, and dismissed as mad. Yet his words still echo, long after the voices of his enemies have turned to dust. These men were not safe. They were not popular. They were not applauded. They were punished, but they were free. And now, look at yourself. You are watching this because something in you refuses to obey, because you feel the weight of stupidity pressing in on you, and you refuse to bow, because you know that silence is death, and questioning is life. That makes you different. That makes you rare. That makes you one of them, one of the last rebels. The crowd will never understand you. They will mock you, brand you, exile you. But history does not remember the obedient. It remembers the questioners. It remembers the rebels. It remembers the few who dared to think when the world demanded silence. And if you dare, it will remember you. This is where the old self dies, the self that obeyed, the self that swallowed its words, the self that begged for acceptance and called it survival. That version of you cannot walk any further. It ends here. Because now you see the truth. Society is at war with thought. This is the age of stupidity, where silence is worshipped and stupidity is crowned. The machinery of silence was built to break you, to turn your voice into dust, your questions into shame, your mind into a prison. But today, you refuse. Today, the obedient servant is executed, and in his place, the untouchable is born. You are no longer readable, no longer predictable, no longer a slave to ridicule, labels, or exile. From this moment forward, questioning is not your weakness. It is your weapon. Silence is no longer safety. It is your punishment for the world. Your voice, your doubt, your defiance, these are your crown. Understand this. The herd will never accept you, but they will fear you, and fear is better than acceptance. Fear is better than love. Fear is the mark of sovereignty. And from this moment, you do not kneel, you do not obey, you do not apologize. You think, and because you think, you rule. This is not the end, this is the beginning. Because now you see it clearly. The system does not want your truth. The crowd does not want your questions. The machine does not want your mind. And that is exactly why you will use them all. From this day forward, you are not one of them. You are not another servant of stupidity. You are not another silent shadow. You are untouchable. And untouchable men do not bow. They do not beg. They do not explain. They rule, in silence when they choose, in defiance when they must. Understand this oath. Every time you refuse to kneel, you strengthen the rebellion. Every time you question, you strike at the machine. Every time you think for yourself, you declare war on stupidity. And here, right now, you have a choice. You can walk away and remain what you were, safe, silent, invisible. Or you can step fully into the rebellion, declare your allegiance, prove that you have crossed the line and will never return. This is not a request. This is not a favor. This is a ritual. Subscribing is not support. It is allegiance. Commenting is not chatter. It is a declaration. Liking is not a button. It is an oath. Because in the age of stupidity, every act of thought, every signal of defiance, every voice that refuses silence is rebellion. So, declare it now. Take the oath. Stand with those who think while the world kneels. Because only a few will survive this age untouched, and you will be one of them. Remember this law. In the age of stupidity, to question is to rule.